Part 79. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 781. Wang Yanzang deliberately let people pass the news to the emperor, and then let the eunuch hook the emperor to the queen's palace. Because he knew very well what kind of virtue his father was, and when he saw a beautiful woman, he wanted to take it for himself. In this way, he can logically let Gu Yunjiao move into his palace. Of course, it's not impossible for him to force Gu Yunjiao to do so, but after forcing her to cry last time, he regretted it. He doesn't want to be a villain in front of her anymore, he hopes that she can use himself as her support. The only reliance. Gu Yunjiao suddenly turned her head, lowered her eyes and said, "I can go home with you. But my family, can you let them go?" Wang Yanzhang frowned, "Let them go? Let them go back to Dachu? Impossible." Gu Yunjiao's heart was pounding, and she had just deliberately said vaguely, just to test Wang Yanzhang's bottom line. She said aggrievedly, "I didn't mean that. I heard that most of the people who migrated over have divided their fields. Can my family members also?" Of the people who migrated, only a few were assigned to those dignitaries as slaves. For the rest, a piece of land was allocated for them to cultivate. After all, it was more in line with the interests of the Jin state for the common people to pay taxes. Jin state has a lot of land and a small population. It is also for this reason that they have not fought the Kishui River this time. After all, they have occupied all the territory of Liao state and a large area of land in the north of Dachu. Army to garrison the city. Wang Yanzang looked at Gu Yunjiao's expression, and seemed to be judging whether what she said was true or false. It's not impossible to divide the land. However, does your family know how to farm? Gu Yunjiao nodded seriously, "Yes. I was originally a peasant girl." Wang Yanzang laughed. He couldn't believe that Gu Yunjiao was born in a peasant family. Her medical skills, her stories, and the novel and interesting ideas in her mind were all that a peasant girl could have. It's not that he hasn't seen peasant girls. Usually, when they meet people, they don't even dare to lift their heads, and they can't speak wholeheartedly, so don't expect them to have any insight. Wang Yanzang pondered for a moment. Gu Yunjiao's family, he must keep it under his nose, only in this way will Gu Yunjiao be obedient. Although he thought so in his heart, he didn't want to be too impersonal in front of Gu Yunjiao. He thought about it and said, "Isn't your father a doctor? Why don't I give him a shop and let him open a pharmacy?" Gu Yunjiao shook her head again and again, "No, my father is too old to open a pharmacy." She hoped that her father and the others would share a piece of land far away. The land of Jin was so sparsely populated that it should be difficult to monitor it. They might find an opportunity to escape. As long as the family members are gone, she will feel at ease, and she will use the medicine store to find a way to escape. Wang Yanzang raised his brows, "Isn't it more tiring to farm? Let's just say it, I'll ask someone to find a shop, and when everything is done, then hand it over to your father." Gu Yunjiao wouldn't change her mind after reading Yanzhang. Her mind was spinning rapidly. Opening a pharmacy also has the benefits of opening a pharmacy. Zhang Yuzi will definitely find a way to save her, which she firmly believes. Opening a pharmacy is equivalent to standing in the light, and it is also convenient for Zhang Yuzi's people to find them in the huge Huaning city. Although Gu Yunjiao had turned a corner in her heart, she still gritted her teeth and did not speak. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 782. Seeing her unhappy look, Wang Yanzhang couldn't help but said softly, "You think about it, the land is all outside the city, and the land in the suburbs has long been gone, and the land that has been distributed now is very far from the city, and you can ride horses. It will take a few days. I really want to let them pass. What do you think about them in the future? It's great to be in the city. If you want to see them, you can go anytime." Gu Yunjiao still did not speak, but remained silent. Seeing her like this, Wanyanjiang could only coax patiently, I won't let you go out in the future, as long as you don't leave the city, you can do whatever you want, okay. Gu Yunjiao accepted it when she saw it, and nodded lightly. The carriage returned to the palace. Wanyanzang got out of the car first, and when Gu Yunjiao stepped on the stool to get out of the car, he stretched out a hand to help. Gu Yunjiao, as if she didn't see it, avoided his hand and got out of the car by herself. The little servants and maids who were serving outside the second door all saw this scene, and they were all surprised. The prince didn't even help the princess. Who is this woman? How dare you not give face to the prince? Wanyan Zhang's face turned cold, he slowly retracted his hand, and then instructed the housekeeper who came over to greet him, go and tell Wang Fei, let her vacate Qin Xin and live with Miss Gu. The furnishings and bedding inside have been changed. I want the best. The butler agreed and hurried away. Wanyan Zhang looked at Gu Yunjiao, it will take a while to clean up the yard, so go and sit with me first. Gu Yunjiao lowered her head, I also asked the second prince to send someone to tell my family, so they don't worry. Without Wanyan Zhang's instructions, he just glanced at the personal soldiers, and the personal soldiers mounted their horses and left. Gu Yunjiao followed Wanyanjiang into his courtyard. When I entered, I saw the maids dressed in neat clothes, lined up in 2 rows in the yard, there were about 100 maids. When Gu Yunjiao told Wanyanzang stories every day, she had seen these maids long ago, so it was not unusual. She had heard Lin Shishi say that the officers of the Jin army had selected 200 beautiful women from Chu, 100 of them were given to Wanyanzang and 100 to Wulin Dahai. Gu Yunjiao saw Yang Ying and Lin Shishi among these maids. Lin Shishi's position at the front was obviously the treatment of the eldest maid. The two entered the house, and the maids hurriedly brought tea and water. Wanyanjiang only ordered, take care of Miss Gu, then he went to the study in the front yard. Without him here, Gu Yunjiao finally breathed a sigh of relief. Lin Shishi and Yang Ying both came. Lin Shishi sent the other maids away and whispered, why did you still enter this mansion? Gu Yunjiao smiled bitterly, and said about going to the palace. Lin Shishi's eyes flashed, but she held back what she wanted to say. Yang Ying lowered her voice and said, then what are you going to do in the future? Are you really a concubine for the second prince? She was embarrassed to ask this. Gu Yunjiao touched her stomach and sighed, what else can I do, sir, let's talk about the child. Fortunately there are still a few months left. Lin Shishi whispered, I guess the second prince will let you pick a few maids from among us, or you will pick Ying over. Gu Yunjiao shook her head, follow me, it may not be good, I'm worried that it will affect you in the future. She would definitely find a chance to escape, no matter if she could escape or not, the maid who followed her would have no good end. Yang Ying said, I'm not afraid. I don't want to live for a long time. I'm earning every day I live now. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jin Kui. Chapter 783. Gu Yunjiao smiled wryly, Ying Ying, I'm serious, following me is probably a death. You are now the second prince's maid, so your life is safe. Yang Ying wanted to say something else, but Lin Shishi motioned her not to say it. Gu Yunjiao asked, by the way, where is Qin Xin? I heard that I will live in Qin Xin later. Lin Shishi stretched out his right hand and pointed to the side, it's right next to it. Gu Yunjiao frowned, where does the princess live? Lin Shishi stretched out his left finger again and pointed, Qingxia garden on the left. She then whispered, we just came here, and the situation in the mansion has not been fully understood. I'll inquire slowly and tell you when I know something. Gu Yunjiao held her hand, it's all thanks to you all the way. Lin Shishi smiled and said, "We are all from Chu, so we should help those who can help." Not long after, the maid came in and said, "Qin Xinyuan has been cleaned up." Gu Yunjiao got up and prepared to go over, when Wan Yanjiang came in. He stared at Gu Yunjiao. "I have a lot of maids here. They are all from the Chu country. You can pick some and serve them in the past, so that you don't understand what you say." Gu Yunjiao said, "I won't pick anyone, the second prince will arrange it." Wan Yanzang thought for a while, and saw Yang Ying just in time. "I remember that you were the one who served in the palace last time, and you went to serve Miss Gu." Gu Yunjiao was speechless for a while. "This is true, she can't hide." Yang Ying said yes with a smile, "Yes." Then Wan Yanzang ordered 7 more maids, all of whom were honest and obedient on weekdays. He instructed, "Girl Gu will be your master in the future, and they will serve you well. If you dare to make any mistakes, you are the only ones to ask." The maids all bowed their heads. Gu Yunjiao saluted Wan Yanjiang and left. Yang Ying quickly stepped forward to help her. Another maid was also clever and supported Gu Yunjiao on the other side. After leaving the main courtyard, he did not go far before arriving at the nearby Qingxinyuan. When I entered, I saw a few 4-season lilacs were planted in the yard, and now they were blooming with light purple flowers, and the whole yard was fragrant. Go inside and into the house. There is a red coral more than 3 feet high in the front hall, and a pair of white jade bottles are displayed on the table. The furniture is all red sandalwood, and there are gem bonsai on the high table in the corner. Gu Yunjiao looked at the bonsai and felt a little familiar. She suddenly remembered that she had seen it in the treasury of the Grand Duke's mansion. Gu Yunjiao sneered softly and entered the bedroom next to her. Incense burns in the bedroom, and the fragrance is strong. Gu Yunjiao smelled the scent of musk, and she immediately said, "The incense burner is gone, move the incense burner out for me." The maid immediately moved the incense burner out. Musk is a kind of precious spice, which is used in many incense cakes and pills. Gu Yunjiao ordered the maid to fetch water. She was very tired at the moment, so she took a shower and went to bed without waiting for lunch. Wan Yanjiang sent someone over at noon and asked Gu Yunjiao to come over for dinner. A maid named Chen Wan was about to wake up Gu Yunjiao, but Yang Ying stopped her. "Go back to the Lord and say that the master is asleep." Chen Wan hesitated for a moment, then turned her head and went out. After listening to Chen Wan's report, Wan Yanzang didn't say anything. After eating, he went to Qingxinyuan by himself. The yard was quiet. The bedroom door was open, with only autumn-colored brocade curtains hanging down. Wan Yanjiang reached out and opened the curtain. "The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth." Author, Jinkui. Chapter 784. Yang Ying moved a stool and sat beside the bed to do needlework, guarding Gu Yunjiao. She quickly got up when she saw Wan Yanjiang, bowed her head and saluted. When Wan Yanzang walked to the bed, she saw a light pink gauze draped over the bed, with a beautiful woman sleeping soundly inside. He stood by the bed for a while, and then he came out. When he came out, he instructed the maid, "When Miss Gu wakes up, see what she wants to eat, and let the kitchen make it and bring it over." The maids bowed their heads. Gu Yunjiao slept until the afternoon and woke up hungry. Yang Ying hurriedly waited on her to get dressed, and Gu Yunjiao grabbed her hand. "I don't need you, I'll do it myself. You were also Miss Qinjian, not the one who did this." With a single sentence, Yang Ying's eyes flashed with tears. She insisted on dressing Gu Yunjiao. "Miss Gu, I am your maid now, and it is right to serve you." Gu Yunjiao sighed, "I didn't want you to be implicated by me, but now I can't do anything about it. In the future, you will take care of this yard for me. In any case, I have to stay here for at least 4 or 5 months." Yang Ying smiled and said, "Okay, I will take care of the yard for the girl." After Gu Yunjiao washed up, she was served by the maids and ate. Outside Lin Shishi came in with a dozen maids. The maids were holding boxes, silk and satin, etc. Lin Shishi respectfully said, "These are all given to the girl by the prince." Yang Ying instructed the maids to take the things, and Lin Shishi bowed and took the people away. Gu Yunjiao had no interest in these things. She guessed that these things were very likely to come from aristocratic families in Dingjing or the imperial palace. The antiques and treasures accumulated by these aristocratic families for more than 100 years, or even hundreds of years, are all cheaper for the Jin people. The next day, after breakfast, Wu Lindahai sent someone over to take Gu Yunjiao to the house to see a doctor. Gu Yunjiao only brought Yang Ying. Entering the mansion, Wu Lindahai greeted her in person, and then took her to an exquisite courtyard. After the maid's notification, Wu Lindahai and Gu Yunjiao went in together. At the top of the main hall sat a woman. The woman was petite and described as thin. Seeing that Wu Lindahai came in with Gu Yunjiao, she immediately raised her sleeves to cover her face, and said sharply, "Why are you here? Get out." Wu Lindahai said helplessly, "Then I'm going out." "This Dr. Gu is the genius doctor I told you yesterday. De Chu came here. She must have a way to cure the lady's illness." Wu Lindahai walked out, and MRSUN immediately said, "Close the door, quickly close the courtyard door." She then said angrily, "When I just reported, why didn't you say that the master was also there?" The maid bowed her head and said nothing. Madame Yuan heard the sound of the courtyard door, and then removed her sleeves from her face. Gu Yunjiao looked at MRSUN silently, and she felt that something was wrong with just one glance. The hair on this lady's head, although black and greasy, was obviously unnatural at some edges, so it should be a wig. Looking more closely, her eyebrows are also very sparse. Although she used Luozide to draw two lines, there is no three-dimensional effect. She is also very thin, and her cheeks are sunken. Seeing that Gu Yunjiao was looking at herself, MRSUN gave a wry smile, "Dr. Gu, please take a seat, you can see that I have a wig on my head now." Gu Yunjiao sat down. "How long has it been since Madame's hair loss?" MRSUN said, "It's been over a year. Now my hair is all falling out." Gu Yunjiao didn't rush to take her pulse, but asked, "How is Madame sleeping?" "The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth." Author, Jinkui. Chapter 785. MRSUN shook her head, "Even if I don't sleep well, I can sleep for half an hour or an hour every night, and I always dream." Gu Yunjiao began to take her pulse, and asked her about her menstruation and bowel movements. MRSUN said everything one by one. Gu Yunjiao thought about it while taking her pulse. MRSUN's menstrual cycle was normal, her bowel movements were normal, and the cause of hair loss was inseparable from the cause of insomnia. She let go of her hand and considered this. "Madame's problem, as far as I can tell, is due to a deficiency of the yin of the heart and the lack of communication between the heart and the kidneys, resulting in insomnia and hair loss. Nourishing yin and clearing heat, nourishing the heart and soothing the mind." "Is that so?" MRSUN nodded slowly. "Yesterday, Wu Lindahai sent someone over and told her carefully, saying how superb Dr. Gu's medical skills were. Therefore, she believed in Gu Yunjiao very much. Or rather, she believed in her husband. I have seen many doctors before, some say I have kidney deficiency, some say I have blood deficiency, and some say I have a lot of blood and dryness. I have been taking medicine for more than a year, but it has no effect. You can see it. Now I am too skinny." Gu Yunjiao said, "Madame's illness will take time to cure, but I don't know if Madame has patience." MRSUN smiled bitterly, "I don't go out now at home, so I have patience." Gu Yunjiao nodded, "Okay, then I'll give you a prescription in a while. You'll have to take 100 or 200 doses of this recipe at least." MRSUN opened her mouth slightly and took one dose for a day. Wouldn't it mean that she would take 1 or 200 days of medicine? She thought for a while, I can hold on to the medicine, but Dr. Gu has to tell me the truth. Can my hair grow back after I take the medicine? Gu Yunjiao nodded, yes, according to my judgment of Madam's physical condition, after taking about 100 medicines, your hair will start to grow. MRSUN got a positive answer, and instantly made up her mind, okay, I'll eat. I look like this now. I don't even want to see my own face. She lowered her eyes, maybe I haven't seen the master for a long time. She then instructed the maid, serve the pen and ink. Gu Yunjiao sat down and prescribed Tianwangbuxin decoction, which contained 2 other herbs. This recipe did not directly make MRSUN grow her hair, but only treated her yin deficiency. However, when the disease was almost cured, her hair would naturally heal grown out. MRSUN saw the recipe and instructed the maid, go and get the medical fee. Gu Yunjiao got up, no need, the Prime Minister has already paid for this consultation fee. It was agreed that day, an iron pot, even if it was a medical fee. MRSUN stood up, thank you, Dr. Gu. Kaiun, send Dr. Gu out. The maid sent Gu Yunjiao outside the yard, and saw Wu Lindahai wandering outside. Wu Lindahai waved back the maid, and asked Gu Yunjiao as he walked, can my wife's disease be cured? Gu Yunjiao nodded, treatment can be cured, but it will take more than half a year, and I have already prescribed the prescription. Yulindahai let out a long sigh, it'll be good if it can be cured. Since she got this disease, not only did she refuse to go out to see people, but now even I am gone. I don't know how many doctors I have seen and how many medicines I have taken for more than a year, but it doesn't work. He cupped his hands towards Gu Yunjiao, thank you, Dr. Gu. He waved his hand, and the maid handed over a small box, which Yang Yang took. After leaving the door of the Prime Minister's mansion, Gu Yunjiao instructed, go to Nantung Street. Now the house where Gu Yuheng and the others live is on Nantung Street. The carriage drove in, Gu Yunjiao got out, and everyone in the room came out. After Gu Yunjiao's experience of not returning home last time, the family was not so flustered this time. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jin Kui. Chapter 786. Gu Yunjiao called her father, MRS Wu, and MRS Chen to explain her current situation, and then calmly said, opening a pharmacy is also good, and you can get in touch with more people, at least you won't be locked up here like now. Don't go. From now on, we're going to plan an escape. Gu Yuheng said, there are a few problems. There are too many of us. It's too conspicuous to walk with so many people, and we will definitely not be able to escape. Gu Yunjiao nodded, you can only leave separately. Also, if you want to go back to Dachu, although you can bypass many cities, but some levels must be passed, then you need a guide, and where to get the guide is also a problem. Chen Shi was a little anxious. She didn't want to be separated from the 2 children, but she had no confidence at all to let her escape from Jin with her 2 children. Gu Yunjiao saw that she was anxious, don't worry, mother, how to separate, which people to leave together, that will all be in the future, there are a few things that need to be done now. She said to Gu Yuheng, first, when the medicine store opens, Dad will find a way to get the map. There are no roads in many places here, and there is no way to go without the map. And then there is Lu Yin. Maybe someone in the black market can fake this. Dad has to find a way to find out, but he must not be found out. Also, you can inquire about the caravan. There must be a caravan going to Dachu in Huining. It is best to follow the caravan. By the way, there is another important thing, and that is everyone's accent. As soon as we hear our accent, we know that we are from Dachu. This is not good. It is difficult to escape without changing our accent. Gu Yuhen nodded. From now on, let's try to learn the accent of the people of Jin. Mrs. Wu interjected, this matter, don't tell a few children first, the children are ignorant, and if they say something wrong, it will be troublesome. Don't talk about it, people, and look at it when you leave. Several people nodded. Gu Yunjiao looked at his father and said, Father, Saburo will definitely come here to find me. When you go to the shop, you must pay attention. Also, I estimate that Wanyanjiang will definitely keep someone to monitor you when the medicine store opens. You must be very careful about what you do and what you say. Gu Yuhen nodded, don't worry, Dad. He spoke with the accent of Jin. Gu Yunjiao smiled and said, Dad learns really well. That's right, for the past 2 months, I've been listening to those Jin soldiers talking every day, and I can say a few simple words. Gu Yuhen was a little proud. Gu Yunjiao gave her father a thumbs up, and then opened a small package she was carrying, which contained gold ingots and some silver. You just take care of the flowers, don't save them, I'll have them after the flowers are over. In his medicine storehouse, he had hundreds of thousands of silver, and he moved tens of thousands of taels of gold from the government's warehouse. Gu Yuheng and the others just thought she got it from the second prince and didn't say anything. Gu Yunjiao just got up, I'm leaving, and I will come to see you every 3 or 4 days in the future. Mrs. Wu said, how about we leave after dinner? Gu Yunjiao shook her head, don't read Yan Zhang's superficial words about giving her freedom. If she really ran out every day, and it would take a long time for her to come out, it is estimated that Wanyanjiang would not let her out. Gu Yunjiao returned to the mansion, and Wanyanzang went to King Sinyuan after hearing the news. He said straight to the point, give me the formulas of Bio and Dida oil, and I'll find someone to set up a workshop to make medicine. He paused and said, in the future, the profits from these 2 medicines will be divided into 30%. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 787. Gu Yunjiao had long known that Wanyanzang, the formula for Bio, was inevitable. Along the way, she also thought of a countermeasure. She quickly picked up a pen, wrote down the recipes of Bio and Dida oil in detail, and handed it over to Wanyanzang. Wanyanzang got the convenience and left. After returning to the main courtyard, he instructed the guards, go and call Dr. Chen over here. There was a doctor in the palace all year round, a retired imperial physician and Wanyanzang's own person. Dr. Chen came over quickly. Wanyanzang pointed to the 2 recipes on the table, look carefully to see if there is any problem with these 2 recipes. Dr. Chen first looked down on the recipe for bruising and oil, and after reading it, he said, this is for the treatment of bruises. Most of the medicines in it are for promoting blood circulation and removing blood stasis. There is nothing wrong with the recipe. He carefully looked at Bio's prescription for a long time. This and the prescription should be used to treat trauma. It seems that there is no problem. Finally, whether the effect is good or not, the old man will not know. Wanyanzang pondered for a moment, these 2 recipes, you first make the medicine according to the above method, and then bring it to me after making it. Remember, these 2 recipes can't be leaked, or you are the only one to ask. Only then did Dr. Chen realize that these 2 recipes might be very important, and respectfully agreed. After Dr. Chen left, Wanyanzang pondered for a while in the room, then called the housekeeper, go and buy a pharmacy. The housekeeper thought he heard it wrong, buy a pharmacy. Wanyanzang said indifferently, I remember that there is a large pharmacy on Dongzheng Street. You go and buy it. Don't touch the contents, and keep the guys. The butler bowed his head in response and backed out. Then Wanyanzang called in his own soldiers again, take a few people to the house on Nantung Street, get Madame Wu and her tall and strong maid out, and find a quiet place to deal with it. Wan Yanzhang narrowed his eyes and added, both of them have some martial arts skills, so be careful when you do it. He was still worried about Mrs. Wu and Dia. When the pharmacy opened, it would be easy for them to get the medicinal materials, and Gu Yunjiao's medical skills were very good. If they healed Danshan's injuries and recovered their skills, it would be trouble after all. It's better to deal with the trouble as soon as possible. However, he planned to hide the truth from Gu Yunjiao, and when she asked, he said to sell the two. The soldiers took orders and left. In the mansion on Nantung Street, Gu Yuheng was watching Gu Chuan and Rokuro writing under the window. Although children can't go to school now, they can't be abandoned. Gu Yuheng suddenly heard someone talking outside. He looked out the window and saw a group of soldiers came in. He quickly and keenly discovered that these soldiers were not the ones who guarded them every day, and he hurried out of the room. What are you doing here? There were 10 soldiers in a team, and the one at the head glanced at Gu Yuheng. It's none of your business. At this time, both Gu Chuan and Lu Lang came out of the room, standing beside Gu Yuheng watching. Gu Chuan tightly grabbed his father's hand. The soldiers didn't stop at all, and went straight to the urchin yard. Gu Yuheng was so flustered that he always felt that this was going to be a big event. He instructed the 2 children not to come out, and told them to close the doors and windows. He called Uncle Dum and went to the backyard together. When I entered, I saw the leading soldier standing in the courtyard, pointing to the 2 upper rooms. Go in and look for it, it's either this room or that room. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 788. Mrs. Wu was taking a nap with Ruru, and Ya sat by the bed to fan the 2 of them. Today, it might be raining and it is very hot. Ya suddenly heard a man's voice from outside, and stood up vigilantly. The next moment, the door was kicked open. A group of soldiers broke in. At the same time, Mrs. Wu suddenly woke up, and she jumped up from the bed. What are you doing? The leading soldier didn't speak, just made a gesture, and the soldiers at the back walked over to Dia and Mrs. Wu. Dia quickly stood in front of Mrs. Wu, and the soldiers stretched out their hands to grab her. Although Dia lost her inner strength, she still had the strength to pull the soldiers aside. The leading soldier saw the situation, took a step back, waved his hand, and all the people behind him rushed up. Mrs. Wu tried her best to resist the soldiers. She had no internal strength. Although she still had some skills, she said it well. She was no match for these Jin troops at all. Seeing that Madame Wu was in danger, Dia pulled down a soldier with all her might, and pulled out the knife from the soldier's waist. She swung the big sword with all her strength, and protected Madame Wu behind her, forcing the soldiers to dare not step forward. The leading soldiers saw that Ya was dancing with a knife and shouted fiercely, "Don't delay, just kill them." Although this was slightly different from the master's order, he felt that it was not a big deal. These 2 people are going to die, where is it not to kill? The soldiers pulled out their knives and slashed around Mrs. Wu and Ya. Gu Yuheng didn't dare to come in at first, and just stood outside the door. Hearing the shouts of soldiers and the sound of swords, he rushed in anxiously. Stop. When he arrived at the door, a soldier pushed him out far away with a slap in the chest. Gu Yuheng fell backwards, his head slammed on the steps of the door, and a pool of blood suddenly flowed out, and he fainted. At this time, Ruru on the bed was also awakened by the sound of the sword, and she burst into tears. The leading soldier walked around the bed a few steps, as if he wanted to catch Ruru. Mrs. Wu was anxious. Ruru was her lifeblood, and she instinctively wanted to rush to stop the soldier. She had been dodging from left to right with some skills, but now she was distracted and was slashed on the shoulder by the soldier. Mrs. Wu groaned, her figure stagnated, and then the second knife swept across Mrs. Wu's waist and abdomen. Mrs. Wu went down softly. She turned her head with difficulty and looked in Ruru's direction. The child she gave birth to after all her life lost her mother's support at such a young age. What should I do in the future? She felt that her stomach was very cold, and it seemed that the wind was blowing in. She reached out and touched it, and she felt blood on her hands. At this moment, Mrs. Wu thought of Zhang Zhongxing and Zhang Yuzi. She showed a mournful smile. After all, her relationship with Yuzi's mother and son was too shallow. After only 1 or 2 years of getting along, they were separated forever. Madam, seeing Madame Wu's tragic state, De Ya shouted sternly, and rushed towards Madame Wu regardless. A big knife slashed behind De Ya, who staggered and rushed forward. Then a few soldiers swarmed up and madly made up for De Ya and Mrs. Wu on the ground. Uncle Dum hid outside the door and shivered. Gu Yuhang lay on the steps with a pool of blood under his head, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. Caping Huixiang, Lin Qiao and the others were doing needlework next door. At this moment, they all hid in the room and held their breath as they listened to the movement next door. Chen Shi was in another room, hugging Sanya tightly. Just now, the soldier kicked the door and came in, frightening Sanya. Mrs. Tian huddled in the kitchen in the front yard, not daring to come out. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 789. The soldiers confirmed that Mrs. Wu and Dia were completely out of breath, put away their knives and supported the 2 injured soldiers to leave. When they walked out of the yard, Uncle Duo shouted loudly. Chen Shi ran out of the room and saw Gu Yuhang on the steps first. She reached out and tried it with a trembling hand, and there was still a snort. She was just about to ask Uncle Dum to lift Gu Yuhang back into the house, when she turned her head, she saw the miserable situation in the room. Ah! Chen Shi screamed in a heart-wrenching scream, and as soon as his eyes darkened, he fell backwards. Just as the 3 maids came out of the room, the color screen ran fast and supported Chen Shi. Chen Shi originally told Sanya not to come out of the house, but when she heard her mother's screams, Sanya still ran out of the house. Sanya looked at her mother worriedly, and was about to speak when she saw Lin Qiao looking into the house, trembling all over, tears streaming down her face in an instant. Sanya followed her gaze and saw a scene that she will never forget. There was blood everywhere in the house, and Mrs. Wu and De Ya fell in a pool of blood. Sanya was so shocked for a while that she forgot to cry, and even forgot to scream. Huixiang and Caping supported the Chen family, and there were no gods. Lin Qiao fell to the ground crying. The nanny came out of the ear room, walked to the door and watched all night, also covering her mouth and crying. Ruru's cries came from inside. Chen Shi's head was dizzy, he opened his eyes without effort, raised his hand, quick, go and carry Ruru out. While crying, the nanny stood at the door and hesitated for a while, then hurriedly went around the bed and hugged Ruru out. Mrs. Chen tried her best to stand up. In this family, Mrs. Wu was gone, and Gu Yuhang's situation didn't look very good. Now, only she can be in charge. She held her forehead and instructed the color screen, you ask Uncle Dum to carry Big Brother Gu back to the house. Uncle Dum carried Gu Yuhang who was on the ground and went to the front yard, only then did Lu Lang and Gu Chuan open the door. Seeing his father unconscious, Gu Chuan was startled, Father. What's wrong with my father? Mrs. Chen was helped in by Huixiang, watching Uncle Du put Gu Yuhang on the bed, and weakly instructed Gu Chuan, didn't your sister keep some bio at home, find it out and give brother Gu some medicine. Only then did Gu Chuan react, and he opened the drawer to look for medicine. Madame Tian also came over from the kitchen at this time, standing at the door and did not dare to come in. Chen Shi beckoned her to come over, let Uncle Dum drive you out and find a doctor. She paused for a moment, and then divided the color screen of the house, you also go out together, you go to the coffin shop, and ask someone to drag 2 coffins over to restrain. Mrs. Tian and Caping agreed, and the two went out to play with Uncle Du for a long time, and Uncle Du drove the car out. Gu Chuan found bio and disinfectant. Huixiang helped Gu Yuhang clean the wound on the back of his head, carefully applied the medicine, and ran back to the backyard to get a bandage. Bringing the bandages over, Huixiang bandaged Gu Yuhang and said to the Chen family, "Aunt Chen, hurry up and have a look, Miss Sanya may be frightened and is standing at the door in a daze. I just told her to go back to the house. She didn't respond." Chen Shi was shocked, and she was in a mess just now, and she didn't care about Sanya. She forced her to go to the backyard. Lu Lang quickly supported her, and Chen pushed him away. "Don't follow me, you are not allowed to go to the backyard." She walked into the backyard with her legs limp, and saw Sanya standing on the steps with her eyes straight. Chen Shi went over and hugged her. "Sanya, what's wrong with you? Don't scare mother." Sanya was held in Chen's arms. She suddenly trembled, and then she cried out, "Wow! The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth." Author, Jinkui. Chapter 790. Chen Shi hugged Sanya and cried, "Mrs. Wu was such a good person, poor Saburo, she managed to find her mother, and she was gone." At this moment, she realized that they were like ants in this foreign country, and they could be run over to death at any time. Escape. Must escape. Chen Shi only cried for a while, then wiped away her tears, and said to Lin Qiao, who was crying and fell to the ground, "Go to the front, and wait for the coffin to be brought over. Let's come back to help you recover." Lin Qiao got up from the ground crying. Chen Shi took Sanya and went to the front yard. Not long after, Mrs. Tian came in with a doctor who was carrying a medicine box. Chen Shi followed into the room, nervously watching the doctor take Gu Yuhang's pulse. The doctor put his fingers on Gu Yuhang's wrist and shook his head uncontrollably. The Chen Shi and Huixiang next to him were in a hurry. Chen hurriedly asked, "Is his injury serious?" The doctor shook his head and said, "I can't say it, I can't say it. It hurts his brain. It depends on when he can wake up, and whether he has a fever these few days. The old man can also prescribe some wound medicine. In short, whether he can live or not is up to fate." Huixiang was anxious. "Why are you doing this, doctor?" The doctor's eyes widened, and Mrs. Chen hurriedly signaled Huixiang to stop talking, then please ask the doctor to prescribe a prescription. There happened to be the pen and ink of Gu Chuan and the others in the room. The doctor prescribed a prescription, threw the pen, and stretched out his hand. "The consultation fee is 2 taels of silver." Huixiang wanted to say something, but held back. Chen Shi gave him the money and asked Rokuro to send the person out. After the others left, Huixiang couldn't help but said, "This doctor can't see his name in seeing a doctor, and he charges such an expensive doctor." Chen Shi waved his hand and said weakly, "Forget it, we are in a foreign country, and Jiao Jiao is not here, so we can only find such a doctor." Huixiang wiped away her tears. "I want to go to the young lady." Chen Shi smiled bitterly. "Where can you go? Even if you can find the palace, you won't be able to get in at all." The two were talking when Gu Chuan, who was standing beside the bed, suddenly shouted, "My father is awake." Chen Shi and Huixiang hurried over to take a look. "Brother Gu, are you okay?" Gu Yuhang's brain was dizzy and painful. He slowly opened his eyes and saw a room full of adults and children, but not Mrs. Wu and Ya. "Fortunately, I'm fine." "Mrs. Wu." Chen Shi covered his mouth and choked, "No more." Gu Yuhang closed his eyes, tears streaming from the corners of his eyes. Chen Shi wiped away tears. "By the way, I just called a doctor to see your injuries and prescribed a prescription. Can you see if this prescription works?" Gu Chuan took the recipe. "I'll read it to my father." Gu Yuhang closed his eyes and listened. "This recipe doesn't work, it's just a shit, I'll open another one myself." "Xiao Chuan, I said, you right. After Gu Chuan wrote the recipe, Huixiang took it and said, I'm going to get the medicine. Chen Shi took a few pieces of silver to her, be careful when you go out, try to learn their accent when you talk to people, so as not to be bullied. Huixiang nodded and went out. She grabbed the medicine and came back, just when the car pulling the coffin stopped at the door. The soldiers did not let the coffin in, and the color screen was reasoning with them. Huixiang hurriedly stuffed some money in, and then opened the door and let the two cars pulling the coffin in. Together with the coffin shop, Chen Shi and Lin Qiao restrained Madame Wu and Dia and put them into the coffin. The coffin was pulled by the carriage and was about to go out. Gu Yuhan lay on the bed and couldn't get up. He instructed Gu Chuan, go and kowtow to Mrs. Wu, and kowtow twice for Dad.